This is the Bosch Communications webinar program. We're going to dive into EV innovation in depth. I do want to say thank you very, very much for joining us today. I know your time is valuable. We've been doing a whole host of webinar series over the course of the last month, and we're going to be continuing those on a pretty wide variety of subjects. So definitely stay tuned, sign up for some of the other ones we got upcoming, but hope you guys are all staying safe out there. And again, thank you very, very much for taking the time to join us today. So again, you've signed up for the EV Innovation Installed Performance Loudspeaker webinar. A couple of things to consider. This webinar is being recorded. So just want you to have that in mind. We do want you guys to ask questions. We're going to enable that chat function. So the chat window down there in Skype, feel free to use that at any time. Write any questions that you might have, and we're going to get to those at the end of the presentation. So you'll get a chance to interact a little bit. There'll be a couple of points where we ask a question, and would love for you guys to tell us a little bit more about what you guys are into, as well as any specific questions you might have about the presentation. So my name is Sean Schallenberger. I'm the Director of Installed Audio, and today we've got Robert Ferguson. He is the Product Marketing Manager for North America. Rob has been with us for quite a while, coming from the inside sales side. He is now focused on the installed audio portfolio for Electro-Voice and Dynacord, and knows the product really inside and out, and is a really good gateway to the engineering side of our business as well. So Rob, why don't you take it away and go over some of the objectives and topics today.
Thanks, Sean, and thank you all for joining us today. Certainly, everyone has, quite a few of us have been working from home, so we understand your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some time with us today. But anyways, let's get to it. Today, this webinar is focused more on our EV innovation portfolio, which is really our installed performance loudspeaker series. So certainly Electro-Voice has plenty of loudspeaker options that can be used for installed applications, from portable all the way up to some of our line array series. Today, we'll primarily focus on the EV innovation range, and we'll highlight some of the different families or series within the larger family of EV innovation and some of the unique technologies behind them. So we'll do a basic overview of EV innovation and some of the technology behind some of these loudspeakers, and then we'll dive into the specific series of these loudspeaker families. So that will include EVU, EVC, EVF, EVH, and then we'll end with EVA here before the end of today. So moving kind of into the EV innovation family, I mean, something that you'll notice about the entire series is it offers not only great sonic performance, versatility, and ease of use, but all of the features are focused directly on the requirements of installed sound systems. So certainly, market research certainly shows us that our customers do not have the use or need for wheels for install applications, right? So they don't need wheels, handles, or pole mounts for products that are to be used strictly for fixed installation. So why add them, and why increase the cost or complicate the product more? So we certainly, the EV innovation line, you will find this. These are install dedicated products. They aren't really designed to be used in mobile applications, although they could be for certain things. These are definitely focused more on permanent installation. So something overall with the family of products, really EV innovation is a family of products where you have complete flexibility to choose the waveguide pattern, the system configuration, so whether it's an 8-inch, a 12-inch, or 15-inch system, what type of finish you want, have a large selection of what rigging accessories to make, and you can make just about any cluster, any type of cluster within with several loudspeakers here, and you have an easy-to-use input panel which allows you access to the enclosure without having to take it apart. So let's first talk about the finishes here. For all of the EV innovation loudspeakers, we do have a color option right out of the gate. We have black and white standard. Certainly we can do some custom colors, but you have two choices of black and white, and then you have three different levels of weatherization. So level 1, or our standard finish, or sometimes you'll hear us call it EV coat, is really mostly for indoor applications or some sheltered outdoor without exposure to rain. So maybe some occasional light rain or fog. However, not the finish you probably want if it's going to be fully exposed, right? Or in a humid environment. So it can sustain some humidity exposure up to 80%, some salt content or normal air exposure, and it is IP44. So it comes with vinyl coated acoustical screen, and it's got stainless steel fasteners used throughout the loudspeaker. So the second level is PI weatherized. And it's really kind of a step beyond the standard EV coat. So this is for indoor. It could be used for indoor applications, but primarily we see it used in sheltered outdoor with limited exposure to sun and rain. So occasional light rain and fog. Again, 80% humidity. So some of the differences is it's a stainless steel grill with foam and hydrophobic cloth layers. A gland nut input panel system comes with it. There's stainless steel fasteners used, just like you would find in the standard EV coat, and the enclosure also has some added drain holes if they're required. And then the third level of weatherization, our highest level here, is our fiberglass finish, or you'll see it abbreviated as FG often. Certainly could be used for indoor, but really designed for full exposure in an outdoor environment. So it can withstand full sun and rain and does not need to be in a covered overhang, right? So heavy rain, fog, snow, up to 95% humidity, 70% salt content, and it's IP55. So in terms of protection, I mean, it's still the same as the PI, right? So level 2 with additional sealing of the grill interface to the enclosure. So it's got that extra level of being sealed, but still offers the stainless steel grill and all of the other things that you see with the PI models. So some other things to talk about here is we do have 11 distinct coverage patterns from constant directivity designed waveguides, and this varies throughout which model we're looking at. But if we're talking about EVF and EVH, really kind of the meat and potatoes of the family, we do have, they both feature a 12-inch by 12-inch rotatable constant directivity waveguide, which gives us great pattern control. And there are 7 coverage patterns available. So we have the added coverage patterns to the front of the waveguide to have complete visibility to where the wide and narrow patterns are at. So it's just a great feature that allows your installation crew to make sure with all certainty that they are rotating the waveguides to the desired position. As you can see here with EVF, we have a 40 by 30 all the way to 120 by 60. And then with EVH, we have a 40 by 30 up to a 90 by 90. So we do have some flexibility in what patterns that we have here, and certainly these are rotatable waveguides. For the EVC family, we've got a couple different options, and we'll talk a little bit more about the EVC series. Again, rotatable waveguide here. Pattern markers are embedded, and for the unique, very intense loudspeaker, there's a very unique waveguide. And I'll talk a little bit about the variable intensity loudspeaker within the EVC range, but it is a unique pattern, and we'll talk about the use case there a little bit here. But for the 12-inch and 15-inch model for EVC, there's a 60 by 45 and a 90 by 55 pattern, which we find to be the 2 most common patterns within the family. And then for the EVC 8-inch, there's a 90 by 60 and a 100 by 100 option. And then, of course, the variable intensity box, or the VI box, sometimes we call it within the EVC family, does have a unique waveguide, which we'll talk a little bit more later. And something else about EV innovation here throughout the family is it's completely flexible with some installation accessories. There is quite a wide variety here. So we've designed a series of installation brackets that allows you to build just about any type of cluster you desire. So we can create horizontal arrays, so that's top-to-top array, top-to-sub array, rear splay horizontal clusters, front splay horizontal clusters. Depending on what you need, we do have several models of kits, full range to sub for EVH or EVF as well. So for horizontal arrays, we're going to use the HRK kits, or they'll be notated as HRK. There's HRK 1, 2, and 3, depending on exactly what you're looking for. And we can also do the same for vertical arrays. So we also offer the vertical rigging kits that give you the same flexibility and choices, but in in a different format here. So again, the same flexibility, and then we have the vertical kits here, which are the VRK kits here, VRK 1, 2, and 3. And of course, EV Innovation also offers intuitive input panels. So let's take a look at some of these input panels. And there's only one comprehensive design with these, and we're able to customize our new input panels for multiple uses. So the same profiles used on EVF, EVH, EVC, and EVA. So the new panel design from the installation point of view, right? We have now given you the passive and biamp switching capability from a rear access point. So it's simple to remove the connector card and place it on the desired position. The same port where you select passive or biamp operation also acts as an access point to test the woofer or driver without having to take the box apart. So and you can do that pretty simply. And then we have also used Phoenix and Euroblock screw terminals with the capability to accept up to 10 gauge wire. And the panel is ready to accept a dual NL4 cover plate or a single or dual gland nut panel for weather protection of the connection points. So these gland nut covers are included with the PI or FG models of all EV Innovation products. We've also included a landing path or insulation pad for a 70 or 100 volt transformer, the TK150. It's simple to install the transformer to the input panel, and you just attach the wire harness to the PC board, then install the panel back on a loudspeaker and attach the included label on around the Phoenix block as the input block has now become your power tap selector. Let's talk about some model abbreviations. So certainly different manufacturers do this differently. I think we do it in a pretty comprehensive way, or maybe I'm just used to it by now, but there is kind of a standard formula for the product models that we come up with. So the first three letters are really the series designation. So if it's EVF, EVH, EVA, EVC, or EVU, it will start that way. So if it's an EVF loudspeaker, it's going to start with EVF. So that's a pretty good indication of what series it's in. The next several digits there are going to be really the transducer complement in the system format. So the first digit will be the number of LF devices. The second and third digit will be the size of that LF device. And then the fourth digit will indicate whether it's two-way, three-way, or simply a subwoofer, right? So to give you an example, if it was a 12-inch EVF, it would be EVF 1122, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the formula here. But 1122 would stand for a single 12-inch two-way, so EVF 1122. So the next here, you won't see with all of the models, you'll see it with EVF and EVH. But there will often be a standard or high definition model, and we'll go through that a little bit more, but essentially some of the components are different. Maybe it's the LF and the compression driver, or it's both. So you'll see a standard and high definition model, and it'll be indicated with an S or a D. So if it's just the standard model, it would be the EVF 1122S for standard. After that, we have the kind of the horn patterns here. So the first digit being the first and second digits really representing what the coverage pattern is. So if it was 90 by 90, it would be 99. If it was 60 by 40, it would be 64. So it's pretty easy to go through that. So if it's the EVF 1122S in a 90 by 90 pattern, it would be 99. And then the last three digits will actually indicate the color and ultimately the level of weatherization. So BLK will just be black. Sometimes it'll just be shortened with B depending on what loudspeaker we're looking at. If it's PIB, it means it's PI or pi weatherized. And then FGB would be full-on fiberglass. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it back over to Sean.
Thanks, Rob. So let's exercise our chat windows, and we've got a question for you guys. So what are the most common applications that you guys encounter in your business? So it could be performing arts, sports, bars, restaurants, education, house of worship, could be other, something we hadn't mentioned here, or it could be all of the above. So if you guys would use the chat window, just fill that in for us. We would greatly appreciate it. And then again, don't hesitate to use that chat function for any questions that you might have throughout the presentation. Awesome, I appreciate that, everyone. You can continue to bring us those answers if you want, but I'll kick it back over to Rob.
Thanks, Sean, and feel free to throw in any questions that you have at the moment. So certainly we'll be going over more of the material, but if you got a question, feel free to type it in now. We'll be doing a little Q&A session here at the end. So let's talk about the 5 system formats that you will find within the EV Innovation Series. So we've gone over some commonalities between the families already, but within the actual specific series, what are they? And we'll go through them overall. So that's going to include EVH, which is our horn-loaded series, EVF, our front-loaded series, EVC, our compact front-loaded series, EVU, our ultra-compact. Sometimes I think the U stands for under balcony because we often use it as a fill or accessory sometimes. And then, of course, we'll talk about EVA, our expandable vertical array. So here's a snapshot of the different series within the overall family. So like I mentioned, we have EVU, EVC, EVF, the standard and high definition model, EVA, and then EVH here on the far side, our horn loaded option, which there's a standard version and a high definition version as well. So let's start with EVU, or ultra compact. I often think of it as under balcony or fills. It's often used for. It can be used for a distributed system, and sometimes it's used for mains, depending on what we're looking at. But it's an ultra compact system that supports and complements the other members of the EV Innovation family, and it's often used in conjunction with EVF, EVH, EVA, and EVC. And it can be used for a delay, under balcony, front fill, and even distributed audio applications, like I mentioned. Again, like all the other EV Innovation products, they do come standard black and white. And then there is the 1062, the 2062, the 1082, and the 2082. I did kind of go through what all these letters and numbers mean together, but essentially it's a single 6, a dual 6, a single 8, and a dual 8 is really the form factor difference between the loudspeakers here with the model numbers. Like I mentioned, so the EVU series in general comes with 6.5 and 8-inch woofers that allow for an ultra compact enclosure. The sky is pretty small, compact, and hard to see, and not as obtrusive as some other loudspeakers you'd see out there. And it offers an 18 dB octave passive crossover with EQ network. Offers a 90 by 50 rotatable waveguide, a 1.3-inch diaphragm compression driver. Offers rear mounting points and it accepts omni mount brackets. And all of the EVU loudspeakers do come with a universal U bracket included with all of them. So it's not a separate accessory. When you order an EVU loudspeaker, it does come with this U bracket. Maybe that's another thing you can remember about EVU is the U bracket that comes with it. And then, of course, you can use an optional 70 volt or 100 volt transformer as an additional accessory. So if you do have an application where you want some distributed audio, but you want something a little more robust than a traditional commercial loudspeaker, you could always use something like an EVU that's nice and compact, but you might get a little more thump out of it. So some of the accessories that are available specifically for EVU is the cover plate with 2 NL4 connectors. So if we don't plan on using the Phoenix Zero Block connectors for installation, maybe for whatever reason NL4s were more convenient, or you're going to take the system up and down for whatever reason, there is that option for you. And then there's also the TK60, which is a 60 watt transformer, which you can see pictured here on the right hand side. So if we did want to use it on a 70 or 100 volt line, it just is an additional accessory to do so. So moving over to the EVC series, now it is a little bit of a newer series compared to the rest of the models within the EV Innovation family, but we felt there was significantly kind of like a little hole between some of the families, and it fits right in between 2 of the product models. But let's talk a little bit about them. There are a couple different form factors here. We've got the EVC 1082, which is a 2-way 8-inch full range speaker. 2 coverage patterns are available, 90 by 60 or 100 by 100. There's the EVC 1122, which is a 2-way 12-inch full-range loudspeaker, and it comes in a 60 by 45 pattern or a 90 by 55. For the 1152, it's a 2-way 15-inch full-range loudspeaker and it comes in a 60 by 45 or a 90 by 55. And then the last one we have for full range is the EVC 1122-VI, or the variable intensity loudspeaker, which I've talked a little bit about. And it's a 2-way 12-inch full range loudspeaker, and it evenly covers a rectangular audience area, which is why it has such a unique waveguide. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And there is a complementary sub within the range. Certainly you could use some other subwoofers within the EV Innovation family, but the one specifically that we felt complements other EVC loudspeakers best is the EVC 1181, and that's a single 18-inch subwoofer. Like I mentioned with EVC, it is part of the overall EV Innovation family, and it fits right in between EVU and EVF. Sometimes I think of it as kind of EVF Junior. It's a little more compact and makes a little bit more sense for certain applications, and certainly is very budget friendly. You'll notice some differences, but certainly between EVU and EVF, EVC only has two coverage configurations, so we picked the most common ones, which I went over already. So certainly that makes sense if you're using if you're looking for that. I mean, if you're looking for a very specific pattern, you might want to step up into EVF, but EVC does offer two of the most common ones. At least we feel they were the most common. Some increased sensitivity there from EVU, a little bit more SPL out of EVC compared to EVU. Some similar power handling, and then configuration is still passive here. So if you're looking for a bi-amp loudspeaker, you want to step up to EVF. And then, of course, we do offer EV coat for indoor, but there's also a PI model for covered outdoor applications within EVC. So if you're looking at EVU, you'll like the form factor. However, you might use it at an overhang or for a distributed application where it might get exposed to some weather. You might want to look at EVC with maybe a U-bracket. So one of the nice things about EVC is since a lot of the other families already existed by the time we introduced EVC, we wanted to make sure that the accessories worked along with it, right? So it uses a lot of the same existing EV Innovation accessories you might already be familiar with the other lines. So that includes the NO4 connector plate, the single gland nut cover, the dual gland nut cover, the TK150 input transformer for 70 volt or 100 volt applications, and then the M10 eyebolt kit, and it comes with a set of 3. So, like I mentioned, EVC can be used for indoor and outdoor applications. So, EVU is definitely more focused on indoor applications, and it comes reinforced 15mm plywood construction. And there's 2 levels of weatherization. Like I mentioned, EV coat, which is IP44, and the PI version is IP55, and it adds a stainless steel grill, a hydrophobic cloth, and it comes with a dual gland nut cover for waterproof signal connection, and it's suitable for covered outdoor applications, as I mentioned. Currently, we don't have a PI model available for the variable intensity loudspeaker, but maybe that'll change if we see more outdoor applications popping up for that. But primarily, we've seen them indoor, and then all the models are available in black and white. So the waveguide patterns, like I mentioned, there's 2 for each loudspeaker format, and we feel they cover the most common applications, the most highly requested patterns within those different formats, and of course they're rotatable. And there are a variety of mounting accessories specific to EVC. There is some stuff that is universal within the EV Innovation family, but there is some specific installation accessories that are available for mounting for just EVC. So that includes an Omni mount type bracket, which you see there, which is the first image there on the left. There's a U bracket for both the 8-inch, and then there's another one for the 12-inch and 15-inch, which is the middle photo here. That's the U bracket. There's also a U bracket for the VI system. And then there's M10 suspension points on all the models, and there's 2 different eyebolt kits you can pick from. There's a 3-pack or a 4-pack, depending on what you're looking for there. So something to keep in mind with the EV Innovation family, the EVC models do not ship with eyebolts or any other mounting accessories. EVU does come with the U bracket. EVC doesn't, because it is a little more flexible, and we thought it made a little more sense to offer the accessory as an additional add-on. So just keep that in mind when you go to order it, that you do need to order the some kind of mounting accessory to make sure that you're able to install it properly. So let's talk a little bit about automatic saturation compensation. So for those of you who are very familiar with 70 or 100 volt audio systems, you're probably familiar with the fact that transformers are really used for a couple reasons, right? To maximize energy transfer from amplifier to the loudspeaker, minimize signal loss over long cable runs, and build an isolated speaker network. But certainly that comes with some disadvantages running a 70 or 100 volt system with transformers. The transformers that can pass the full audio range are expensive, large, and heavy, and all transformers will saturate when driven hard enough, especially at lower frequencies. So as the transformer core begins to saturate, the electrical impedance drops, and when driven hard enough, a transformer is effectively a short circuit. So a common solution for many manufacturers, they recommend a system high-pass filter, usually as a part of their system DSP, to protect the amplifiers from low transformer impedance. Now, when multiple speakers are connected, the high-pass filter cutoff frequency typically needs to be raised. And the trade-off there is the low-end response is sacrificed to ensure stable system operation and protect the electronics. Now, in comparison, the accessory that we offer for the EVC family is the TK150, and it is a high-quality transformer with a massive core. It has incredible frequency response, and I certainly encourage you to take a look at how impressive that transformer is. So, but without ASC, it's sometimes necessary to filter out most of the base frequencies in order to protect the system electronics from risk of failure, and the automatically adjusting filter in ASC and automatic saturation compensation preserves low end while protecting system electronics. So typically you see this 100 hertz cutoff here for most systems or most competitor systems, and you'll find that with automatic saturation compensation, you can go lower into 50 hertz, and you're really missing out on a lot of those important lower frequencies in a typical 70 or 100 volt system. So it's something that you don't have to worry about with automatic saturation compensation, and certainly encourage you to go that route if it makes sense. So ASC includes a variable cutoff high pass filter in each loudspeaker, and it senses current level and adjusts the filter only enough to keep the transformer from saturating and maintains that low frequency extension. So this feature is standard on all the EVC models, so it automatically engages when the TK150 transformer is installed, and the combination of automatic saturation compensation circuit with the TK150 makes it almost impossible to hear the difference between a speaker that has a transformer installed and one that doesn't. And you can even hear this in the EVC subwoofer, so that 1181S, that 18-inch subwoofer. A demo we love to do here at EV is to compare an EVC subwoofer that doesn't have the TK150 transformer and one that does, and it's almost completely inaudible. I can never tell the difference. I only know because we set it out. But it's a very impressive demo, and if you do find yourself in a situation where maybe this would make more sense to do distributed audio, but I want to preserve the audio quality, and I don't want to spend all the money to have a bunch of different amplifier channels or zone it all out. You want to cut down on amp channels, this might be a great solution. Just add the TK150 to your EVC loudspeaker. So let's talk about the variable intensity technology that we find within the variable intensity loudspeaker in the EVC range. So really the application is to use a single source or single loudspeaker that covers a rectangular listening area. So you can find this in a variety of applications. I'm sure you run into rectangular rooms all the time, but it could be a school, a lecture hall, an auditorium, a meeting room. It could be a house of worship, a bar, club, and we're even seeing it a lot in airport and transit terminals. So, and the problem with these types of installations is the sound level changes with distance, which is typical, right? And then the sound is often too loud in the front, and then it's too soft in the rear, right? So if this is a typical point source box, you're really going to notice the drop off between the two spaces. So what you'll find with a typical point source loudspeaker is you have 10 to 11 dB variation across the listening area, and that's on average, right? So the variation is reduced to 6 to 8 dB across the bulk of the listening area. The front of listening area is similar in level to the middle section here, and you'll find that with the variable intensity technology. So the woofer axis is aimed at the rear of the audience using reduced off-axis response to even out front to back levels. And you can kind of see this waveguide here right in front of you. So it is kind of funky looking. I like, when it first came out, I thought it was very interesting until I really heard it and heard how musical it was. It's quite an impressive loudspeaker and a very unique tool, but it has narrow dispersion to rear of the listening area and wide dispersion to front of the listening area. So overall, it's unique. It's a unique compound waveguide that projects both short throw and long throw coverage with a single device. And like I mentioned earlier, the VI approach reduces a level difference to 6 to 8 dB rather than 10 to 11 dB across most of the listening area. Levels in front are similar to those in the middle. And I think the best part about it is, aside from the fact that it is a very effective tool to cover a decent listening space, is it's very simple to very simple to configure this and install it, right? So the coverage depends entirely on mounting height, right? So it really depends on how high we do it, right? And the angle of that loudspeaker once we mount it, right? So the coverage begins at 0.6 times the height, falls off at 3 times the height, and is 2 times height over the distance. So by rounding up the 0.6 to 1, we can easily approximate coverage area based on the mounted height at the bottom rear of the loudspeaker as a 3-2-1 rule. So I think it's very simple and easy to figure out with just basic dimensions of the room. So moving from EVC to EVF, kind of our standard front-loaded system series, and it is probably the most common format that we see out there. And the Electro-Voice EVF is a front-loaded, high-powered, two-way loudspeaker system that can be used in a variety of applications where high-quality sound reinforcement is required in a lightweight package. We don't want these loudspeakers to be too heavy up in the air. So they're available in a 12-inch and 15-inch woofer model. And then they're available in biamp or passive operation. And there are 7 patterns available, 40 by 30, all the way up to 120 by 60, with some patterns obviously in between. Another unique thing about the EVF range, once we start stepping up in EVF and EVH, is there is the S version or the standard version and the D version or the high definition version, as we like to call it. So essentially, the loudspeakers are exactly the same from S version to the D version in terms of the actual enclosure, right? They're exactly the same footprint. There's really not a big difference, but what's inside is a little different, right? So the transducers are typically a little different. So the high definition obviously being more upgraded, or a little bit more expensive, depending on what application we're looking at. But we're talking about, some different internal components. So for the woofer, we're looking at the SMX series. For the D version, we're looking at the DVX series. And then we're also looking at a different voice coil here at the high frequency 2-inch versus 3-inch. And then the power ratings are still relatively similar, but there is a difference, 500 watts compared to 600 watts continuous. Now that I mentioned that, you might be asking yourself, well, where do I put the S version? Where do I put the D version? And really, there's not a real clear answer for you. It really depends on what the application is and what you're looking for. And sometimes it has to do with budget, right? We often run into that. So a rule of thumb I always go with is I usually start with the D version. And then if I find myself in a budget scenario, or if I think the system's really just going to be running passive, and we're not really going to optimize the loudspeaker for the space, then maybe we'll move down to the S version. So really, we want to use the EVF-D version where sound truly matters, right? We really care about the sound quality. Certainly the S version sounds great, but why not go for the better option if you can? And for most applications, theaters, performing arts, you'll find that this is used even in house of worship. But if you find yourself getting into a budget pinch, or maybe you don't really need all of that loudspeaker on the inside there, you can always move down to the S version. So the front-loaded low-frequency systems for EVF mid-high systems, there are a couple options here. I'll highlight a couple. We won't go through all of them, but they are available in a 12-inch, a 15-inch, an 18-inch, a 2x12, and then a 2x15-inch trapezoidal speaker design. Again, flying hardware is the same as all the EVF range here, and then they come in black and white and the 3 finishes, like I mentioned. And their main use is just certainly for low frequency extension. For the EVF and EVH series, certainly they could be used with some other loudspeakers outside of EVF and EVH. So let's talk about a couple of them. We'll start with the 12-inch here. So that's the EVF 1121S. Got a 12-inch low frequency transducer rated at 400 watts continuous. Comes with 20 M10 threaded suspension points and 2 U-bracket attachment points. And it's pretty slick for something that's still relatively powerful. And it includes a passive network. There's also the 15-inch, and it's certainly the EVF 1151 got a 15-inch LF transducer. System rating similar, 400 watts, continuous. Again, 20 M10 points, U-bracket attachment points, and does also include a passive network. And then one of the most popular subwoofers within the range is the EVF 2151D, and we often see it with a combination of other loudspeakers even outside the EV Innovation range. It includes 2 DVX 15-inch LF transducers. System rating is 1,000 watts continuous. 4,000 watts peak, has some M10 threaded suspension points, and there is no passive network here, so you'll want to use an external crossover or an amplifier here for DSP. So I mean, the most common solution most people go with is Dynacord, because we already have the preset already pre-aligned here for the EVF 2151D. So let's talk about our horn-loaded series. So if we're looking at something like EVH, and maybe we need something that's it's a reverberant space, or it needs something that's a little more directive, EVH might be a great solution for you. And overall, EVH is a high-power, two-way horn-loaded coaxial loudspeaker system that can be used in a variety of applications where excellent quality sound reinforcement, wideband directivity control, and high efficiency are required in a compact package. So we typically see that most of the time for most EVH installations, if they decide to use a subwoofer, that they're going to pick something from the EVF series. So we just talked about the 2151D. That one is most commonly used with the EVH series. Now, EVH does have some really impressive low frequency extension, even for being such a directional horn-loaded device. But primarily, the audio system for vocal and music reproduction, where higher SPL is required in challenging acoustical environments, is where you'll find EVH. And there are 6 patterns available, 40 by 30 all the way up to a 90 by 90. Then there's an S and D version. Really, the woofer is the same for both of them. However, there's a difference in the high frequency here, a 2-inch voice coil versus a 3-inch voice coil. Again, with the S versus the D version, again, I always tend to lead with the D version and step down to the S version when it becomes a budget scenario, but certainly where sound matters the most, so that's theaters, performing arts centers, or stadiums, you'll often find the D version the most. And something that I find very unique, especially to Electro-Voice, is not only is there a rotatable high-frequency waveguide, but there's also a rotatable mid-band waveguide that obviously makes this thing very directional and very highly directed, but it's very natural sounding for a horn-loaded device. So moving over to EVA, which is our expandable vertical array series. And it's really designed to provide full bandwidth, well-defined coverage from easily created line arrays using 4 different configurations, or 4 different pre-configured two-way modules. 2 vertical coverage angles are available, either 6 degrees or 20 degrees, and can be combined to create line arrays optimized for difficult and demanding spaces. And there's 2 horizontal coverage angles, 90 degrees or 120, which provides the perfect match for really any width venue. So EVA features dual 8-inch woofers with quad HF drivers on 2 dual hydros plane wave generators. It's a modular design for true vertical line array coverage and performance, and it does have very professional aesthetics for even the most demanding venues. You'll see here on the right-hand side that this is a couple modules of EVA full range line array system here. And you'll find that the rigging is all internal, which makes it very smooth and unobtrusive, and they often look like a nice clean column. Especially we find that in House of Worship, white is a very common configuration, and line arrays can be obtrusive, but might be required for a space. But at least with EVA, it does look like a smooth column and like it's supposed to be there. And especially in House of Worship, we find that having some of these EVA line arrays in white, it looks like a smooth white column that's supposed to be in that venue. So each module consists of 2 elements. Each two-way element contains an 8-inch woofer and 2 compression drivers mounted on a hydro waveguide combination. And then each two-ways element's HF section can be attenuated 3 dB by using the attenuation selection card on the input panel. So only 1 element per module. So the unique acoustics, internal network, and integrated rigging design allows for 8 modules, or 16 elements, 16 woofers, and 32 HF drivers. Vertical array to be built using a combination of modules from the entire EVA series. So these same uniquenesses also allows for 6 modules to be powered by a single amplifier channel, and 8 modules if the bottom 2 modules have an EVA AM installed, which is our attenuation module. So one unique thing about EVA is not only does it aesthetically look great and performs well, but each one of these loudspeakers is rated at 16 ohms. So it gives us the ability to actually run several loudspeakers on a single amplifier channel, which makes it very economically friendly. And then offering this attenuation module allows you to shade the bottom module, so we're not blasting the front audience without having to dedicate an amplifier channel to it. So you can commonly find, maybe it's just 4 or 5 modules. We can actually power it with something like a C3600, a Dynacord C3600, and know that it's fully operational and fine. And then maybe we'll use an attenuation module on the bottom or bottom 2 modules without having to dedicate more amplifier channels. So it's very economically friendly. And this is what the attenuation module looks like. And it really just slaps right onto the back of the input panel there. I mentioned this a bit already, but we've got 2 horizontal coverage angles with the EVA 2082. So either 90 or 120. And then for vertical, it's either in a 6 degree or a 20 degree. And then we have the different finishes, right? Black and white. And then we can get these in standard, PI weatherized, or full-on fiberglass if we needed to. So some other key features here, aside from the fact that it offers true line array performance, we have 104 dB sensitivity, up to 135 dB maximum SPL. That's only measured with 3 modules. System rating is at 350 watts continuous, all the way up to 1400 watts peak. It's only passive only, so if we're looking for something, a line array outside of a passive operated line array, you might want to look either at X-Line Advance or some of the other line array families that we have available. But there's an advanced 6-order crossover network with HF protection within EVA. And then, of course, the PI and fiberglass versions come with the gland nut cover and stainless steel grille. And there is the Avada tool, the EVA Design Assistant software tool, which makes it very easy to configure this. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then one of the subwoofers we have within the range is the EVA 1151D. That's 15-inch, right? And it's a DVX. And it's high power, front loaded, ideal for fixed installations, and it has the seamless rigging with the EVA line array, so it's very smooth and clean with the full range modules. And then it has 500 watts continuous power handling, up to 2000 watts, and then the integrated rigging. Suspension hardware is hidden, and we can have splays of 0 degrees or 5 degrees between the modules. And again, we can get these in the same finishes as the full range modules. Like I mentioned, the rigging system for the EVA 2151D allows us to have a splay of 0 degrees to plus or minus 5 degrees. The other subwoofer in the family, which is also very popular, is the EVA 2151D, and that's a dual 15-inch with DVX woofers here, offering 100 dB sensitivity, 1,000 watts continuous, up to 4,000 watts peak, and up to 136 dB maximum SPL. Again, we can get these in all the same finishes. We can get the regular modules, so from EV coat all the way up to fiberglass. There's a couple different grids. We have the standard grid, which is designed for the EVA full range systems and the EVA 1151D, so just the 15-inch subwoofer, and allows for 0 and 5 degree splay between the grid and subwoofer. There's the EG2 or the extended grid, which we can use for EVA full range systems, the 1151D subwoofer, the 15-inch subwoofer, and then the EVA 2151D, the dual 15-inch subwoofer. You have to use the EG2 to use it. So allows 0 and 5 degree splay between the grid and subwoofer, and allows some extreme angle of the speaker array since it's a larger grid. There's also a coupler grid for EVA full range systems, and if we want to rear stack some 1151D, so just the 15-inch single subwoofer, that might be aesthetically might make the most sense, or performance-wise it might make the most sense, but we do have a coupler grid available. And then if you are looking at EVA, I do strongly encourage you to take a look at the manual. It will tell you everything you need to know. I find that not all manuals have all the information you need. There might be several other manuals, but this has everything you need to know. It has instructions on rigging, designing, how to use Avada, which is the design assistant software, and then, of course, all of the other information that you might need. So here's a couple system examples. We're using the EG2 here, the extended grid, with some 1151Ds, and then you can see here that we have some 906s, so that's a 90 by 6, and then the 920s, which is a 90 by 20. And then the coupler grid here, right? So we're rear stacking some subs, which you can see in this example, and they're splayed a little bit. And then, of course, for the 2151D, we have to use the extended grid, and this is a very common configuration we see with 4 modules underneath, full range modules underneath. But as you get into a project where you think EVA is the right solution here, there is a very easy to use tool called Avada, EVA Design Assistant. It's quick and easy to use. It's Microsoft Excel based. Just make sure you're using the 32-bit version. It will work within that version, but it's very easy to use and configure just based on some two-dimensional parameters. But I use it all the time, and it works quite well. And then, of course, if you want something a little more detailed or advanced, you can certainly use this in ease. We do have all of the GLLs for these modules if you want to do a prediction within ease. And lastly, let's say, I know we went through a lot of loudspeakers, and certainly we just went through one family of EV Innovation here, which although it's the bulk of some of our install products, we do have a lot of other products outside this. So even if we're getting into some of the higher end line arrays within the family, or maybe some other loudspeakers, maybe you're not sure what loudspeaker to use, or maybe you're not as familiar with our portfolio as another manufacturer, you can involve an expert. We do have a whole team of application designers available. Certainly you could talk to someone like Sean or myself. We're happy to help you, but we do have guys that are even more advanced than us that can help you, create a bill of materials for your project or do some ease modeling with you. And we do have a system design questionnaire right on the Electro-Voice website. It's right under tech support. It's simply a downloadable, fillable PDF, and it has basic contact information. But big things there is really what you're trying to accomplish within the project scope, and then some architectural drawings and job specifications. Certainly, the more information we have, the easier it is to turn around and design for you. But that email is vuv.design@us.bosch.com, and it is right on the form that's available right on the website. So went through quite a bit of material today, and I appreciate you spending your time with us today. But today we went through the EV Innovation Series. Specifically, we focused on maybe some key technologies that all of the series share within the family. And then we went through EVU, our ultra compact or under balcony fill. Sometimes that's what it's most commonly used for. We went through EVC, EVF, EVH, our horn-loaded system, and EVA here at the end. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Sean to do a little Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. So now is your chance. If you got some questions, please write those in the chat box, and we will definitely answer them for you. Not a ton of them in right now, so Rob, you must have absolutely stuck the landing. I did get a couple through instant message. Are the EV speakers available in custom colors?
That's a great question, and if you're looking at a price sheet or online, you'll see the model numbers for the two most popular colors, which are black and white. However, we do have the ability to do custom colors. So all we need is like the rail color and then what loudspeaker and the quantities to really give you an accurate quote. But we absolutely can do custom colors. We're running into this more and more, right? We want to stay blended in with the architecture, and sometimes that means doing a different paint color or custom paint color for the project. But as long as we have the information, we can give you a custom quote on what the charge would be for a custom color.
And do you have any electronics to support the EV loudspeakers?
Absolutely. So you guys that are familiar with Electro-Voice, we've had Electro-Voice amplifiers for a long time, Electro-Voice branded amplifiers. But however, we've reintroduced the Dynacord brand over the past couple of years, and we've actually invested quite a bit into our amplifier line within the Dynacord family. So if you're looking at Electro-Voice loudspeakers, I would encourage you to use some Dynacord electronics and amplifiers to power them. We already have all the presets, including FIR drive for almost all of the loudspeakers within all of these families, especially EV Innovation. So I encourage you, if you're using an EV loudspeaker, to take a look at Dynacord as the amplification solution.
And this question came in yesterday, but I thought it was a good one. It's a good one to revisit. Can we orient the horns in horizontal position from the factory? So those speaker boxes that do have rotatable horns, can we actually change that from the factory?
Yes, we do have that ability. Certainly, we have the standard sizes or the standard configuration, like 90 by 60. But let's say you're going to put it in a horizontal orientation. As long as you notify us ahead of time, we can actually build them that way so that you don't have to take apart the grill and rotate it. Right, that adds a lot of time to your install and labor for your guys. So since we're already assembling it in the factory, it doesn't take much for us to rotate it 90 degrees so that it makes sense for the installation. So, but as long as we know ahead of time, we can do that for you while we assemble the loudspeakers. But that's a great question.
And my favorite question, Rob, because we do get asked this all the time: how much does the design assist survey and VOM actually cost?
So that's a great question. I mean, we've thought about charging something, but absolutely not. So since we are very familiar with the products, and we spend all the engineering resource, and we have a dedicated team to this, and we spend a lot of time with the products, we're here to offer that service to you for absolutely free. So there's zero charge for that. There's no plans of charging for that in the future. It's a joke Sean and I make quite often that we'll personally charge for it, but it's absolutely free. So if you do decide that you want some expert involvement in your project and you want an application engineer, a guy who spent 20-25 years with the loudspeakers, we're more than happy to help you put together a design, and that doesn't cost you anything.
Awesome. Well, looks like that is going to do it for the questions, Rob. I think that was all we had.
All right.
Great job.
Thank you.
So again, we really appreciate you guys joining us today. I know your time is valuable, so really appreciate the support there. But if you do need to speak to us on more specific project discussion, you can certainly contact us at presales.support@us.bosch.com. And be sure to follow us on social media. We've got lots of information coming out on different webinars and some virtual shows that will be upcoming. We're going to be putting some of that information out on our social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube channel, etc. Again, just want to say thank you very much, Rob. A very good job, and you guys have a fantastic day.